It's time to get biblical. Today I'll be exploring the truth behind some of the most shocking satanic mysteries, including the real history behind the inverted cross, the Roman cult responsible for Christmas, and the god of child sacrifice in Rome. The inverted cross. When you see an inverted cross, meaning a cross that's upside down, what is your first association? For many, the sight of an inverted cross makes them immediately think of the devil. You've seen it in horror movies, you've read about it in books, but did you know that the inverted cross is actually a holy symbol? 2,000 years ago, St. Peter was martyred on an upside-down cross. For most of Christianity's existence, the inverted cross was a sign of the Christian faith. It was only recently that things took a darker, more nefarious turn with this ancient symbol. Who was St. Peter, and why did he receive such a horrible demise? As if being crucified wasn't bad enough, Peter was crucified upside down. Just imagine all that blood rushing to your head while a dirty Roman is pounding nails through your feet. Definitely not the best way to go. In Christian tradition, Peter was one of the most important apostles of Jesus Christ. After the death of Jesus, Peter became the leader of the church and the very first pope. It was a dangerous time to be a Christian, though, in part because of the Roman emperors who didn't like how much power the Christians were suddenly wielding. It's believed Emperor Nero was the man behind Peter's death. Nero was persecuting Christians left and right during the 1st century AD, and Peter was the most Christian of them all. When Peter learned that he was to be arrested, he tried to flee Rome. On his way out, Jesus appeared to him in a vision and asked, "Where are you going?" Jesus basically called Peter a coward for running away. But really, who could blame Peter for not wanting to be crucified? Peter turned back and accepted his fate. But he did not see himself as worthy to be killed in the same manner as Jesus. Peter asked that the cross be flipped upside down as a symbol of his humility. The legend of Peter's bravery and accepting his cruel and unusual punishment spread across the lands. For the next 1900 years, the inverted cross remained a precious Christian symbol of devotion and humility. It was only in the last 50 years that things started to change. Atheism, the occult, heavy metal bands, horror movie directors, these are the groups behind turning the inverted cross into a symbol of Satanism. But the real symbol is still holy. The craziest part is that modern religious folks often don't even know the difference. At the 2024 Super Bowl, rapper Ice Spice wore an upside-down cross and received heaps of backlash for it. She was accused of being a Satanist, just like other famous figures who have been spotted wearing the inverted cross in the past. I'm looking at Chelsea Clinton and Melinda Gates as two prime examples. However, in all these cases, the famous ladies are merely wearing the inverted cross of St. Peter. There's nothing evil about it. Or maybe I'm totally wrong and Ice Spice is performing satanic rituals with Taylor Swift. The AntiSanta. Have you ever noticed that Santa Claus has a little bit too much in common with Satan? The names are nearly identical, just move the T and the A around. It doesn't take a Scrabble genius to make the connection. Santa is famous for wearing red, while the devil resides in the hot red flames of hell. Both ancient characters are associated with fire, with Santa even appearing from the chimney as if birthed through the flames of hell. Plus, Santa is the personification of greed. Tell me you've seen the Black Friday videos of people trampling one another to death in their rush to get Christmas presents. You might say it's all Santa's fault. Maybe I'm just being silly. Historians claim Santa is factually based on a Greek Orthodox bishop from the 3rd century named St. Nicholas. There isn't anything diabolical about that. But then, how do you explain Krampus? Yes, Krampus, the anti-Claus, the devil of Christmas, the Antichrist of the holidays. In European folklore, Krampus is a horrible beast who doesn't tolerate misbehaving children. He definitely doesn't give them presents. But he also punishes them with his brutal whip by giving them Christmas lashings. That's definitely not how I want to wake up on Christmas morning. You might be wondering what sick weirdo came up with the idea of Krampus. He is a popular tradition throughout Central Europe, mostly in Germany, Slovenia, and Austria. He was a truly hideous monster. Jennifer Billock from Smithsonian Magazine said Krampus had bloodshot eyes, demonic horns, and a furry black body. He looked part goat, part demon, like a more festive version of Satan. Myth says Krampus was born from the Norse goddess Hel, who was the Nordic version of Satan. Hel was the queen of Helheim, the Viking underworld. She was the daughter of Loki, who we all know thanks to the Marvel movies. Hel, whose name is literally Hell but with one less L, was depicted as a ragged old lady who was basically part zombie. Her face and upper torso were of a beautiful living woman, but the rest of her was rotten and decaying like a corpse. This was where Krampus came from, so it's no wonder he was so ugly. Medieval people in Germany dressed up in suits and rang bells while tormenting children during the winter solstice 1500 years ago. As Christianity became more prevalent, Krampus became entwined with the myth of St. Nicholas and Christmas. Molech. In 2020, visitors to the Colosseum in Rome were greeted with a god most people thought was long forgotten. As part of an exhibit celebrating the ancient city of Carthage, a gigantic statue of Molech was erected in front of the Colosseum. Suffice to say, there were a lot of Christians who were not particularly pleased by this. Molech was by far the most frightening, despicable, and horrendous deity worshipped before the spread of Christianity. He was the principal god of the Canaanites and the Carthaginians. It was only after the Romans defeated Carthage that Molech started to lose his worshippers. In the Bible, there are names of dozens of strange gods that the Israelites are warned against worshipping. Leviticus is where Molech's name appears. He is also sometimes known as Baal, whose name might sound a little more familiar to you. In modern times, Baal has become the name of one of the evil princes of hell. Leviticus chapter 18 verse 21 reads as follows, "You shall not give any of your children to offer them to Molech, and so profane the name of your God." Wait, did you hear that correctly? You shall not give any of your children. Why would God warn the Israelites against giving their children to the god of Canaan? The answer is surprisingly simple. Molech was an insatiable god of evilness who demanded to be fed the blood of children. It's heinous, but it's true. Regardless of what your religious affiliation might be, I think we can all agree worshipping a god that demands child sacrifice is no bueno. It's starting to become a little clearer why Christianity got so popular. People were tired of feeding their kids to gods depicted as big, angry bulls. Alexandra Clark told LifeSite News that she and her family were very excited to visit the Colosseum on their trip to Rome, but when they got there, they were horrified by the colossal statue of Moloch standing guard at the entrance. Alexandra wasn't the only one who was outraged. She called the statue a mockery of the martyrdoms of early Christians. In reality, the statue was part of a historical celebration modeled after the Molech scene in the 1914 silent film Cabiria. It's highly unlikely that Romans are turning to Molech for comfort in these trying times. But hey, stranger things have happened. The Jesuit Secret. Have you seen this symbol before? It appears all over the Christian world, in churches, on altars, and even in ancient tombs. It looks like the letter IHS. But what is the true meaning behind the symbol? There isn't anything satanic about it. IHS is a monogram, an abbreviation of Jesus Christ's name in Greek. The shortened form of Jesus' name in Greek consists of the letters iota, eta, and sigma. When they are converted into English, they become IHS. It's a really innocuous symbol that's been used for centuries and centuries. It also happens to be the official symbol of the Society of Jesus, aka the Jesuits. The Christogram, as it's more formally known, is this one here. You see the IHS in the middle of a blazing sun with the H speared by the cross and 3 nails at the bottom. The nails are to represent the nails driven through Christ's hands and feet at the crucifixion. Now the symbol has earned itself a bit of dubiousness, because since the 16th century, the Society of Jesus has been at the core of countless conspiracy theories. In 1551, Augustinian friar George Brown accused the Jesuits of cheating their way to the top of the Christian hierarchy. This was later allegedly proved by the revealed Monita Secreta. It was a document written by the 5th leader of the Society of Jesus, explaining how they needed to expand their power across Europe by any means necessary. The conspiracy was that the Jesuits were not that dedicated to Jesus. Instead, they were using their cover as Christians to seek power by infiltrating all levels of politics. They were also accused of working against colonizers in the New World by involving themselves with indigenous peoples. They supposedly commanded the indigenous people to wage war against Europeans, allegedly as a way to stop the spread of Catholicism. As the years progressed, the Society of Jesus became despised by almost all major religious orders in Europe. They were accused of being able to influence everything they touched because they were part of a shadow government, a shady organization that oversaw the evolution of human society. I'm not sure if the conspiracies make the Jesuits Satanists or opportunists, but it's still believed today that the Jesuits hold immense power. They've been connected to the Illuminati. The Jesuits have even been blamed for sinking the Titanic. The conspiracy claims that the Jesuits ordered Captain Edward Smith to steer the boat at full speed straight into a chunk of ice. Why, you ask? It wasn't part of a black mass, but rather part of an assassination to get rid of their banking rivals. The Jesuits sank the unsinkable boat as part of a hit. I wanted to give a big thank you to RS Don Call 7598 and Kieran Daredevil 815 for supporting this channel. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already for more videos like these. The Pentagram. The pentagram, just like the inverted cross, is another symbol with strange beginnings. The next time you see a friend sporting a pentagram, impress them with this little tidbit of knowledge. The pentagram is a star with 5 points. But why 5? Going back as far as recorded history, it was a symbol of the 5 elements of this world. You probably know the 4 major elements already: earth, air, fire, and water. The 5th point of the pentagram is to represent the spirit, the 5th element. Yes, kind of like the movie The 5th Element. The first place the pentagram was used was in ancient Mesopotamia, in the lands of Sumer. Sumer being where the first city sprouted from the fertile riverbanks and the first written language was created. This was the dawn of civilization, at least the dawn of our current human civilization. If you've been following the channel, you know what I'm talking about. For Mesopotamians, the pentagram was used as a representation of Ishtar, goddess of love and war. It represented the path through the stars to Ishtar's planet, Venus. In ancient Greece, the pentagram continued to be used, only now it was a favorite symbol for mathematicians. Followers of Pythagoras used the pentagram to represent the golden ratio, a sort of mathematical perfection. The golden ratio is a mathematical constant that happens to appear in nature too. It's seen in the spirals of seashells and the patterns of petals. Continuing on through the ages, ancient Greece falls to the wayside and the Roman Empire collapses. Now it's the Middle Ages and Christian symbolism is everywhere. Believe it or not, the pentagram has evolved by around 500 AD to become an important symbol for followers of Christ. The 5 points of the pentagram represented the 5 wounds of Jesus during his crucifixion. Just like the inverted cross, the pentagram was a holy sign. It represented virtue, honor, and knighthood. Later, during the Renaissance, the pentagram became a thinking man's symbol. Scholars and alchemists connected it to nature and the elements. From here, it was easy to morph the pentagram into a mystical symbol and a sign of the occult. Anton LaVey, founder of the Church of Satan, was the one who shifted the pentagram into something evil. In the 19th century, he changed the modern world by inventing Satanism, the same brand of Satanism that is still practiced today. Anton was also the author of the Satanic Bible, a pseudo-spell book full of bizarre teachings and ideas. Anton was the first to differentiate between an upright and an inverted pentagram, but he just made it all up. Anton used the pentagram for his own design, just like how horror directors used the inverted cross to represent the Antichrist in the 1970s. Let's call it creative liberty. The hardcore truth is that pentagrams have never been evil. They only ever represented good things, even to Christians. Yet now the pentagram is associated with practitioners of Wicca, with Satan, and with demon worshippers. Jesus the Sorcerer. Don't shoot the messenger for this next one, all right? Jesus Christ, as you have known him, will cease to exist just momentarily. According to a medieval Jewish text, Jesus was not the Messiah, he was a wizard. The Toldot Yeshu presents scholars with an alternative narrative for Jesus' life. Forget everything you know about the Gospels and suspend belief just for a few minutes while I tell you about this incredible book. It claims Jesus was a sorcerer and a false prophet who deceived his band of merry followers by manipulating them. He wasn't born to a virgin. Instead, Mary, Jesus' mom, shacked up with a Roman soldier named Pandera. Jesus' birth was not holy or divine in any way. It was a normal birth resulting in a normal baby. As a child, the Tol.Yeshu claims Jesus was rude, disrespectful, and downright cruel to his elders. Jesus was a punk and a disobedient kid who defied authority. Unlike the Savior depicted in the Gospels, this version of Jesus grew up practicing the dark arts. He traveled to Egypt to study magic. Once a proficient sorcerer, Jesus returned to the lands of Israel to trick people using illusions, sleight of hand, and all the charisma of a car salesman. Using his knowledge of trickery, Jesus began converting followers of Islam. He convinced at least 12 people to follow him to the ends of the earth. He wasn't an embodiment of compassion and humility. Jesus was a con man and a cult leader no more divine than someone like David Koresh. This isn't me saying all of these things personally. I'm only reciting what was written in the Middle Ages in the Jewish book Tol.Yeshu. At the end of the book, Jesus' crucifixion comes because of Jewish leadership selling him to the Romans. He wasn't executed as a revolutionary, but rather as a common criminal. He was a menace to society and got nailed to the cross kicking and screaming in protest. Are the events described in this book correct or false? Both Christians and Jewish people unanimously agree the book is not factual. Most scholars think it was written by a group of Jews in the Middle Ages to paint Christ in a poor light. But theoretically, what if it wasn't? What if Jesus really was a con man and a magician? The Hellfire Club. The Order of the Friars of St. Francis of Wickham sounds like a prestigious group of devoted Christians, does it not? If you were to see that name inscribed on a plaque outside an old brick building, you would assume it was home to monks or priests. But the assumption couldn't be more wrong. The Order of the Friars of St. Francis of Wickham is better known as the Hellfire Club. Its creator was Francis Dashwood, an English politician who started the club around 1762. The club was for him and his friends to practice Satanism. Since the beginning of history, the rich and powerful have founded secret clubs in which to do terrible things. It's happening right now, and it will always happen as long as there is high society. Francis wanted his very own club where he and his friends, people of quality, could partake in what was perceived by the public as immoral acts. Most members were involved in politics, and although experts have a reliable idea of what happened behind the doors of the Hellfire Club, nobody can say for sure. They didn't write down their activities, nor did their members openly discuss what happened. Francis's motto was, "Do what thou wilt," essentially saying that members of his club could do absolutely anything they wanted, and I mean anything. The motto was so popular it was later copied by Aleister Crowley, the most diabolical occultist of the 20th century. There were originally 12 members in Francis's club, just as there were 12 apostles who followed Jesus Christ. As I already said, there are no official records of what happened in the meeting place, but there are rumors. They supposedly engaged in exaggerated parodies of Christian rites. They offered sacrifices to pagan gods like Bacchus and Venus, and they did lewd things that, quite frankly, I can't even repeat because they were so nasty. The club disappeared in the late 1760s. Others sprang up in its place like the Beggars' Benison and the Phoenix Society, the latter of which lasted until at least 1954. Nowadays, the underground chambers where the Hellfire Club offered their sacrifices is a tourist site. It's not far from Buckinghamshire in England. Paganism on the Rise. After 1,000 years of being ignored, the gods of the Vikings are returning in a big and surprising way. The fastest growing religion in Iceland is Nordic paganism. That's the same religion that was practiced by the Vikings who stormed Paris and sent their heathen army across England. It's hard to imagine a world in which Christianity, Islam, Judaism, and Buddhism are not the largest religions. In the Western world, it's truly impossible to picture a society without Jehovah's Witnesses knocking on your door at 6 in the morning on the weekend. Yet in Iceland, it is slowly becoming a reality. Nordic paganism is up from about 500 members in 2002 to 4,000 members as of 2018. It doesn't sound like a lot, but keep in mind Iceland only has like 7 people in it. Kidding. The top religion is still Christianity, but now the second top religion is Nordic paganism. For the first time in 10 centuries, a Norse temple is under construction. A dead religion is being brought back from the brink of extinction. Please excuse me if I don't pronounce this right, but just look at all these letters. The religious building is called Hof Asa Trua Felixens. You try to say it and see if you can do better than me. The Hof Temple has been in development since 2005, but still isn't finished. When it is done, it will be the first temple of its kind since Vikings arrived in Iceland. It'll hold about 250 people for religious Nordic ceremonies. But is this just another form of Satanism? Do the people of Iceland truly worship Odin, Thor, Loki, and the other Isa gods? High Priest Hilmar Orn Hilmarsson said most of the followers do not believe in a one-eyed man named Odin, nor a god of thunder. Instead, followers of Nordic paganism are more interested in the Viking tales as poetic metaphors for things like nature and human psychology. Much like the legitimate Church of Satan these days, Nordic paganism focuses on traditional values, respect for the environment, and tolerance for other people. The Roman cult behind Christmas. When the next holiday season rolls around, be sure to remember the ancient Roman cult responsible for the Western world's most popular holiday. The cult of Sol Invictus created Christmas long before Jesus Christ was ever born. Sol is a name that might ring familiar in your ear. He was the sun god of the Romans as early as the 3rd century BC. In the late stage of the Roman Empire, nearly 600 years later, he was known as Sol Invictus. It's a name that means invincible sun. In 274 AD, Emperor Aurelian declared Sol Invictus the chief god of the entire empire. Emperor Aurelian really wanted to get rid of the remaining followers of Jesus. He almost did it too. He built an epic temple for Sol and formed a cult. Soon, all the most important members of Roman society were followers of Sol. Priests were promoted to high positions in government. The senatorial elite went to the Temple of Sol to give praise. Sol was even printed on coins throughout the empire. The greatest day of celebration was December 25th, when an immense festival was held in honor of Sol. Just think of how cool it would have been to partake in a Christmas celebration before Christmas even existed, when Rome was at its height. It would have been like Mardi Gras times a million. In 321 AD, Emperor Constantine declared the 7th day of the week to be a day of rest. The day was named Dies Solis, or the Day of the Sun. If you happen to be watching this on a lazy Sunday morning in your pajamas, you can thank Sol for the privilege. Wait a minute, isn't Jesus' birthday on December 25th? Didn't God create the world in 6 days and then take a rest on the 7th day, and that is why we have Sunday? This is where your mind is going to be blown away. The answer to both those questions is a resounding no. Jesus' birthday was not on December 25th. The Bible does not say anywhere that Jesus was born in December. The Bible doesn't say the month, the day, or the year of his birth. Biblical scholars think he was born between the year 4 and 6 BC, which means he was born in the era of before Christ. It's kind of ironic when you think about it. Jesus' birthday wasn't declared the 25th of December until 350 AD. Pope Julius I was the man who made Jesus' birthday official, even though he lived 350 years after the Messiah. Much earlier scholars believe Jesus was born on May 20th or April 20th. For more than 3 centuries, the prevailing theory was that Jesus was born in spring. As for the whole Sunday thing, just look at the word, Sunday. It was named after the god Sol, who had his day of honor on December 25th. Scholars think the church copied Sol's big day, giving it to Jesus Christ in an attempt to get rid of Sol's worship. Either way you look at it, Christmas is the same holiday celebrated by the Romans. It's held annually at the start of the new solar year. Who is the Antichrist? Let's turn our attention to something a little eviler than happy Icelandic folk getting back to their ancient roots. And what is eviler than the Antichrist? Spoiler alert, absolutely nothing. But who is the Antichrist, and when is he going to show his ugly face? According to the Bible, the Antichrist is everywhere at all times. In the Bible, the Antichrist is only mentioned 5 times, all of them in the epistles of John. The Antichrist is described as a mass entity rather than a single person born of flesh and blood. The Antichrist is more of a concept than a singular force. It's a hard thing to conceptualize based on just a few lines. But listen to this one and let me know what you think. Little children, it is the last hour, and as you have heard that Antichrist cometh. Even now there are become many Antichrists, whereby we know that it is the last hour. It's convoluted and vague, right? There's another passage in Epistles 2 that says, those who do not confess that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh, any such person is the deceiver and the Antichrist. This line suggests anyone anyone who doesn't believe in Jesus is the Antichrist. In 155 AD, Polycarp was burned at the stake and stabbed repeatedly. I don't mean to bring all this gore at you, but that was what happened to the poor guy. Polycarp was a follower of John the Apostle and the first known person to use the term Antichrist while preaching in the Roman Empire. He didn't speak of a single person, but claimed anyone who denied the Lord was the Antichrist. In the early days of Christianity, pentagrams and inverted crosses were holy, and the Antichrist was any person who didn't believe in Jesus. But just like with pentagrams and inverted crosses, the meaning of the Antichrist started to change. People began interpreting the Antichrist as a single person who would herald the apocalypse. In the Middle Ages, the Catholic Church was wildly out of control. Elders in the church frequently accused one another of being the Antichrist. Arnulf, Bishop of Reims, was annoyed by Pope John XV, so he announced that the Pope was the Antichrist. This was a popular tradition throughout the Middle Ages, with other popes such as Clement III being accused of devilry. Nowadays, the Antichrist has become a big, dramatic villain, but that wasn't how the term was originally used. The number of the beast. 666 is the most diabolical number in the history of numbers. But where do the 3 sixes come from, and why are they synonymous with the devil? In the Bible, the author of Revelation witnessed a great and terrible creature rise out of the earth during an apocalyptic vision. This creature was called the Beast, and its number was 666. The horrible beast could perform miracles, and it demanded all the people of the world be marked with its number. Those not marked by the number of the beast would be slain. Over the centuries, scholars have been trying to figure out what all this could mean. Many still believe the beast is meant to be the Antichrist. Then again, many Christians freaked out when the tap feature came out for debit cards, saying the little chip in the card was the number of the beast. People throughout history have come up with their own solutions for what 666 really means. I'm here to tell you that the answer has been in the Bible all along. It isn't even that complicated, and dare I say, it's only marginally interesting. The author or authors of Revelation had a big problem with Rome, and especially with Emperor Nero. At the beginning of today's video, I told you about how Nero was the one behind St. Peter being crucified upside down. Nero was seen by the Christians of the 1st century as the Antichrist already born. When you translate Caesar Nero into Hebrew and change the letters into numbers, they equal 666. It's not a coincidence that this happens. In other manuscripts of Revelation written in other languages like Greek and Latin, the number of the beast was different. Sometimes it was 616. The number was different because when spelling Nero in different languages, you get different total numbers, though all pretty close to 600. The mark of the beast doesn't correlate to a mysterious mark that will announce the apocalypse. It was just a secret code for Nero, whom Christians despised as the devil incarnate. The troubles of Jesus. You've already learned a lot today about Jesus Christ, like the fact he may have been a sorcerer. But did you also know Jesus had biological brothers and sisters? In the New Testament, the book plainly states Jesus had 4 brothers named James, Jose, Jude, and Simon. He also had 2 sisters, though the Bible neglects to mention their names. You might be able to shrug this information off if you didn't think about it too hard. But isn't Jesus' mother a virgin? Christian doctrine states Mary remained a virgin her entire life as part of her dedication to God. That either means Jesus' 6 siblings were also the offspring of God, or Mary was a little merrier than she cared to admit. Another thing that's interesting to think about is that if Jesus did have 6 siblings, it's safe to say his bloodline has survived. Even if Jesus died on the cross, at least one of his brothers or sisters must have survived to procreate. Jesus' descendants could be alive and well right now somewhere in the world. They likely don't even know that they have Jesus' DNA coursing through their veins. Jesus' extended family is only one baffling part about Christ as he's depicted in the Bible. Another shocking fact is that Jesus Christ wasn't even his real name. Christ comes from the Greek word Christos, which means chosen one. Jesus didn't have a surname, which is why he's also called Jesus of Nazareth in the Bible as a way to properly identify him. There's one more myth about Jesus that I think you need to know about. He may have appeared in the Old Testament, aka the Hebrew Bible. As you might know already, the events of the Old Testament took place many years before Jesus was born, yet he may have made a cameo. In the Old Testament, there is a mysterious figure known as the Angel of the Lord. He pays a visit to some of the most important characters in the book, including Moses and Abraham. This particular angel is more important than the others. He's more powerful, has more authority, and might just be Jesus in angel form. Before Jesus was born into a human body and sent to be the savior of humanity, he may have been God's messenger in the Old Testament. What are your thoughts on the devilish things discussed in today's video? Let me know in the comments, and thanks a lot for watching. Be sure to hit subscribe if you haven't already, and check back every day for more amazing stuff from the channel.